Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. Today's guest is an OG that many of you may know, and we're looking forward to getting to know him a whole lot more. He is at, I'm hoping I pronounced this correctly, Mutsu Doi Moi Academy in Albany. He's a second degree black belt, and we're really looking forward to getting to know him better. His name is Christopher Mazzali. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks very much, Kim. Thanks, Brett.
Hey Chris, it's awesome to see you. I met you for the first time at the gathering a few years ago. At that stage, mate, you had long hair and a bit of a beard. You're running with the shorter hair and the moustache, mate. This facial hair. A lot of people talk about my beard, but your facial hair is always good, mate. What's the secret? What do you do?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a game. I think sometimes it's for fun. I can change my look fairly easily.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not necessarily by design. It's just yeah, different moods, different days.
Yeah,
sometimes it lasts for months.
Yeah, you're a very stylish person, man. I really do remember meeting you. I really do. And just sort of thinking like this guy's like, you've got that beautiful balance between this quirkiness and this stylist sort of person. So yeah, I remember you very distinctly, mate. For you, it was probably just another wipeout match that you were watching.
No, I should have worn my overalls. I definitely I don't follow the norms. I just got out of the garden as well, so I dressed up and put this on.
See, if you start to run with the overalls, you can start up like a new academy and just call it Overall Jiu Jitsu, right?
Oh, look at that! Jeez, there's an ideas man right there.
White overalls, blue overalls, up to black overalls, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I've got a few. I'm ready.
And Chris, something that we ask pretty much all our guests is how you got started in jiu-jitsu. Tell us about your beginnings.
Started wrestling when I was 14 in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I played ice hockey as a kid, but one of my good friends from high school, Don Smith, said, "Hey, come down to wrestling practice. They got a padded room. They let us fight." And I went down thinking I was going to be good, and I got my butt kicked, and I was addicted straight away. I've always done martial arts since, pretty much. I kind of stopped playing ice hockey seriously and decided that, I was going to do martial arts. And so it kind of started there when it comes down to it. And freestyle wrestling was something that we did at school as a child. So it was, I guess it started there. Specifically, BJJ, I would have to say I did, 2004 or something like that. I met up with a guy named Darren McKean in Brisbane, where I was studying at the Australian College of Natural Medicine under a person by the name of Patrick McCarthy, who's a more traditional stylist, and was studying an accredited course, and I was studying remedial massage at the same time. And I looked over at this fellow sitting next to me named Darren, and his ears were crinkled up. And I thought straight away that he was either a rugby player or he was into fighting. And that's where I really got to know. And at that time he was a purple belt, and that was just like the weirdest thing you could ever see. I did train with Troy Flugie in Perth before that happened, but when it comes down to it, the seriousness happened when I met up with Darren, I think. And then I came back and trained with Troy again. And so it's been a very strange journey, but it's a good one.
Speaking of, sorry, Brent, let me just jump in. Can I ask you about the Troy Flugie Award at the Machado Nationals?
Yeah, that's a pretty special thing. There's a couple of them at the dojo. I call it a dojo. I'm a bit of a weirdo, I guess, but that's just how it is. Some people do, some people don't. Troy Flugie was one of my mentors and teachers, and he passed away. The the year that I was thinking and planning to go to the gathering for the first time. And a couple of weeks beforehand, he passed away, a shock. And ever since then, I've gone to the gathering, except for 2000. And in a way to honor his work and friendship and kindness that he extended to me, as well as introducing me to John Will, and what a great thing that is. Yeah, it's a hard thing to talk about, honestly.
Mm, yeah, it feels like that too, actually. It's
Yeah,
when you've been in jiu-jitsu for a period of time, especially for as long as you have, you do meet some absolutely wonderful people. You meet some crazy people. You meet some fun people from all different walks of life. So to have people like that, and I know John Will's spoken about this as well. People who have been black belts under John who have passed away. It's amazing that the community that jiu-jitsu brings into your life. Like, um, I don't know too many other things that I've done that have created a community like this at all.
yeah, I totally agree, and that was. I was greeted with open arms by Troy when I first and Stacy Wilson was also a part of that as well. The Submission Factory in Perth, and there's been a lot of guys that I've met over the years that have been very successful as a result of having that association. Um, but yeah, the community, it's a really important part, and I know that I appreciate that a lot, and I try to create a very similar situation at the dojo here, and I do get that a lot actually. When
Yeah.
new people come in, they're quite surprised. There's an element of care that goes into what we do that is unique. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Albany and the surrounds, sort of where you are and your gym, Chris. Tell us a little bit about that, mate.
I live 8 minutes from the dojo by car. I feel guilty driving my car there, actually. I've got a bicycle, but yeah, it's. I've been in a building here now for, geez, it's over a decade easy. I actually started teaching martial arts in Denmark, Western Australia, which is 45 minutes away at the Denmark Surf Life Saving Club,
Right.
and it overlooked the ocean. We did that for quite a few years before I ended up renting a place here in Albany. I took over a lease, somebody that decided they didn't want to do what they were doing, and I've got 150 square meters of mats and padded walls and all the stuff you might need. Really, the only thing that matters is a clean mat for me.
Yeah.
Any of the decorating and stuff like that's by other people that are associated with the gym. I'm not really creating that stuff. Um, it's there isn't a huge membership, but it's a small town. You know, there's 20,000 people here. I only advertise truly by word of mouth. Obviously, I have a Facebook page, but that's really just to live stream the matches when we have matches, as well as announcements and that sort of stuff. I'm not a huge businessman approach to what we do. Um, yeah, it's unique, I think, because it's a small town and most everything's word of mouth.
Yeah.
We practice gi and no gi. We practice MMA regularly. I've got a girl going in a fight this Saturday. Very excited about that. Yeah, it certainly is the center of what I get up to. Yeah.
How far is it from Perth?
5 hours. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
It's that
every
far.
competition requires that drive there and
Mm.
back, which actually
Wow.
over the years it has been a lot of joy. Sitting in a car with your teammates for 5 hours before you head up to Perth, and then a lot of the times we'll go to a mat somewhere and have a wrestle as soon as we get there to shake the cobwebs.
Mm.
I know we've done that for years and years, and it really is a good recipe. And yeah, it's a big deal for people from where I teach to go and compete, because you have to travel that far. I can't even imagine what it's like to be an hour or half an hour from where the competitions are, but that's just how it is. and you have to make a commitment. And that's I think that's why we have reasonable success as well, is because you have to be so committed to what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's hard to drive up there and get your butt kicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's as those drives are sort of happening. The relationships that you're building, just continue to get it stronger, and you find out more about your teammates or your coach or your student or whatever. So I've been lucky enough to go over to World Masters a couple of times, and Lincoln Hancock is my coach. So he'll hire a car, and then we drive from LA up to Vegas, and it's a beautiful drive. But the music's playing, the conversation's happening, the bullshit's carrying on, and by the time you get there, you're like, and it's 5 hours or 5.5 hours. You get stuck in a bit of traffic, and it is tiring. But those moments are really precious. It's a really nice time to be spending with people that you're sharing the mats with, isn't it?
I think you get prepped on the way up, and the debrief on the way back is always really
Yeah.
good as well. I think that's another part that is
Yep.
totally required when it comes to what we do.
Yeah.
You're either licking your wounds, which I think you're learning more when that happens,
Yeah.
or you're celebrating the success of a really good effort, and that's and both are good. They're both worth every second. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And Chris, tell us about when you got your black belt. How was that? Tell us about that day and the lead up to it.
It was it was at the gathering. Yeah. I'm one of those guys that cries when stuff like that happens, Like
Me
I am.
too.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
And
I'm the same.
especially to be there and feel like Troy was there. That was important. Higgins there. That's just amazing. The first book that I ever bought was Higgin Machado Leg Locks. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like that
wow,
was the first jujitsu book I ever bought. Yeah, and I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And that was a long time ago. To have John tie a belt around you, that's a really important thing. I got belts from other people as well. Stacy Wilson gave me a black belt, and Adam Metcalf gave me a black belt all on the same day. It was full on. I was overwhelmed. It was hard to talk, but I figured out just then. Oh boy, I've got so much more to learn.
Yeah. Who
Yeah.
who do you consider? Do you consider that you have a coach? Do you sort of take advice from lots of different people? How does that work for you, Chris?
Well, in the early days, I would travel up to Perth pretty regular, and I would go to the sub factory and train. And Troy even came down to visit and stayed in my caravan in the backyard. It was a bit like that at the start, and then over the years, of course, we'd be prepping to go to competitions, and on the way to the competition, we'd go into Adams or go into the sub factory, or we've always been fairly welcome, which has been really nice as well. But I would say that those are the two main influences, and then of course my desire to learn and get better just by working, by learning stuff, going to seminars when I can, and that sort of thing, and then coming back and putting it to practice. I would say as well that I've had a big influence from Frank Barca. There's no doubt about that. He definitely deserves a mention, and my friendship and connection to him. We studied classical martial arts together, so yeah, he's definitely a big part as well. And I really like 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu also. So that's always been the case. I think that's been apparent over the years as well.
Speaking of Frank, I did a little bit of homework on you from Frank, and he's given me some information. I'm not sure if I can share. He's dared me actually to ask you that. He tells me you were a nudist.
A nudist?
Is that true?
Oh, I've been out in the garden with no clothes on before, if that's what you mean. not necessarily on purpose. I'm not really bashful or anything like that. I don't try to offend people. Um, but yeah, my grandson and I run around the house and woohoo naked before we hop in the shower sometimes. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. What a cool story.
Woo, run around the house.
Ah,
Yeah. I'm not scared.
Mm.
that's cool.
I have a
Tim,
habit of
mate.
sometimes just changing right there and then and put my training gear on.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if I'm a nudist. I wouldn't play volleyball nude. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't.
You're not going to the nudist camp 19 miles away and walking around the beach and playing tennis.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. But
So you're
my poor
okay to
neighbors,
get
like
nude, but not be a
I do feel
nudist. I
sorry
like
for
it.
them. Just if I want something that's on the line, I'll just walk out to the line and grab it out of the shower. Right?
That's
Yeah,
perfect. That's the way it
yeah.
should be done.
I haven't been arrested or anything either, so just yeah, it's. I am careful. I don't try to offend people.
Mate, one other
Thanks
thing
for
when you
You,
me.
uh,
yeah,
one other thing, Chris, when people do meet you, not only do you have a very vibrant personality, and you're a colourful person, you're also quite heavily tattooed. Where did this tattoo stuff come from, mate? You're a because I do look at you. You seem I don't know what the word is, like a very arty sort of a person, you know? So are these things that are you do you draw? Have you designed your own tattoos? Are you just like just put it on me? I like it. Like where did this come from?
Yeah, look, tattoos started really young for me. I had a tattoo for 2 years before my mom saw it. I fell asleep on the couch, my sleeve rolled up, and yeah, I copped it. Hey, I got in trouble. And I mean, I got my first tattoo when I was 15.
Yeah.
And in Canada, that was yeah, at my age, that wasn't really the done thing. I went to a Catholic school.
Right.
I remember showing my friends at school, and they were just blown away.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, those first tattoos weren't necessarily following too much of a theme. I went to Brisbane and I got my original tattoo covered.
Yeah.
And the theme has been a bit of a Japanese style that I really enjoy and really like.
Yeah.
If I travel, I get a tattoo pretty
Oh
much
wow.
everywhere I go. Yeah, I've actually got a student named Gina. She's an awesome tattoo artist. Gina, there's your plug. If you're in Albany and you want to get a tattoo, that's where you
There,
want to go to.
there you go.
Um, and and if I met her 10 years ago, I think I'd have more tattoos.
wow. When I travel, I just get a fridge magnet when I travel. That's my thing. I mean, that's a real commitment. Yeah.
Cheaper,
Change it up, Tim.
cheaper. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely something that I guess you get an affinity to, and I'm one of those persons that yeah, just keep going. I guess.
Yeah.
What age did you
Yeah,
come to
That's all.
Australia, mate? So what made you or why did you decide to leave Canada? Um, and
I came
why
to visit.
Australia?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I came to visit
No.
my friend Don, the guy that told me about wrestling.
Yeah.
He was in Australia. He came to Australia and was riding a bicycle around. He ended up landing in Perth. 1992, I arrived. I was having a rest from university. I was studying environmental science in Canada. Um, I showed up at a place called North Beach on West Coast Drive, and it was right across from the Indian Ocean, in essence. And that was my bedroom window. And
Wow.
staying wasn't hard. I
Yeah.
met the mother of my children. And yeah, you didn't have to talk me into trying to stay. I wanted to stay. I watched the sunset for 3 months when I first got here every day. It just, yeah.
Which part of Canada were you from?
I'm from a place I was born in a place called Windsor, Ontario. And my parents are from a place called Toronto. And I spent a lot of time there, as well as I spent a lot of time on the water at my grandmother's cottage up on the Bruce Peninsula. And I think that's probably why I have such an affinity to water and the ocean and stuff like that. I'm 8 minutes walk from the ocean here as well. So, um, yeah, getting here was I guess by fluke. I remember my dad teased me when I said I was going to go to Australia, but I was 20 years old, and
Yeah.
he was surprised that I was happy to just fly, and I did. And I've lived in a few places in Australia. Lived in Perth for quite a while. Lived in Brisbane for a few years when I was studying with Patrick McCarthy, and then when we came back to Perth, I did establish myself a little bit, but we moved down to Denmark to raise my children. So and that's my oldest daughter's 29.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
I had kids young, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
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 And what about injuries, Chris? Have you had any major injuries in your time?
Yeah, I've got a rib injury right now. We were practicing for MMA, and I went to take care down on the wall, and her knee hit me in the center of the chest, and her butt was against the wall when I moved in, and it just landed on it hard. And so I've got an intercostal injury. I still wrestled today, but that's one of those habits that dies hard. I've had lots of injuries. Broken toes are one of my least favorite things, but most frequent things, it seems, for me. I've broken my toes. Even at the gathering, I was pretty injured. I had a broken toe for 4 weeks before that. It wasn't right. I managed to compete okay, but that's the first time I was at the gathering, didn't get a submission. It was bummed.
Ah.
I've had a couple of neck bulges. That's part of the deal as well. Sometimes from wrestling, sometimes from surfing. So yeah, lots of finger injuries. My hands are old. I'm a remedial massage therapist. My hands get beaten up in a couple different ways, and the gi becomes more and more difficult as the years go on.
Yes.
Tell us about competition life for you, Chris. So, do you remember your first competition? Where was that? And maybe some highlights.
Oh, golly. My first Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competition would be under Troy Flugie at another gym at the association. There was Nova Uniao, Gioeri, Paul Diaz, Will Diaz's father's place. That was the first time I competed in a BJJ competition.
Yep.
I guess in wrestling you compete anyway. As a teenager in wrestling, it just happened.
Yep.
I did have some competition in karate as well, which I really did enjoy that sort of stuff. My I think winning my first at the gathering in honor of Troy, in all honesty, was probably the biggest thing for me. I know I go back to that all the time, but
Good.
he's right there, I reckon, and that's important. And I've competed at every gathering I can. I've had some matches with some pretty fancy people over the years that I wish I did better. I competed with Will Diaz with a broken face. I broke it the day before in
Oh.
practice and went up and competed anyway. I didn't do as well as I wanted, but that's life.
That's what happens when you got a broken face.
It wasn't good. I had to drive back up to Perth. I drove back home, and then I had to drive back up again to go to a specialist because they were thinking about putting a plate in and all that. It's really bad.
No.
And it was like a warm-up wrestle before we drove up. Yeah, it not good. But it was like I had the rest of my body was fine. It was just my face hurt. And I had a really good prep, and I was like, well, I get to go against somebody that I admire and I think is an absolute amazing martial artist. Geez, Will Diaz is fantastic. He just won
I'm
it.
trying to get him on the podcast. Anybody that can help me who might be listening, please let me know how. I've messaged him several times.
Who's that? Will Diaz?
Yeah, Will Diaz.
I'll send him a message too.
Please. No, I
don't know
met
if
him
I'll
at
have an
course as
impact.
well, and he promises me, yeah, let's do it, and then nothing. I don't get any response. So if we could get him on, that'd be great.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, he'd be worth having on. He's a nice fellow. He's quiet, reserved, except for when he's on the mat.
Yeah.
He's a killer on the mat.
Beast.
Yeah.
He's an absolute beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So I was telling Kim just before you jumped in, I was telling Kim about, I had a mat with Brett, your student Brett,
yeah,
Indies. And Absolutely a legend of a guy. So that's the first time that you and I met. So it was a bracket of three, and being the gathering, you don't really know what division you're going to be in, right? Like you put your name down and your rank and your age and your weight, but you could be any you could be anywhere, right?
You get relegated. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I was the lightest and the oldest in the division, and it was a bracket of three. So I had Brett first, and he beat me in the first match. So I had another guy next,
Yeah.
and I luckily won that match. So I had Brett again in the final, and him and I had this match, which was, and I've said it to a bunch of people, it's probably one of the most fun jiu-jitsu matches I've ever had, because it was, he was up and then I was up and then he was up and I was up and I accidentally kicked him in the face and he laughed and we just kept, it was just, mate, it was one of my most fun matches. But the thing that really stuck out in my head is when we finished the match, both my coach and yourself went up to both of the athletes, and just said congratulations. Like your warmth, to me. I still remember it, mate. So like I really appreciate it, and that's obviously one of the ways that you coach, because I felt that, but I also looked over and you're sort of having a chat with Brett and having a moment with him too. So yeah, it's a special thing, mate, for sure.
Yeah, I would say that I'm all in. There's no doubt
Mm,
about that. As in, I feel what it does for me as a competitor has always been good, and when I see other people experience that, it makes you feel good. It makes you want to not hug them as violently, but hug them
yeah,
and be there and feel that moment. You're only going to get a certain amount of time to be able to do these sorts of things, and the more you do it, the greater it is, in my opinion. And I think that we have the commonality we have outweighs any of the differences totally.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Tell
big
us a
thing.
bit more, Chris, about the grappling scene in Western Australia. Like it's a little bit separate from, I suppose, the rest of Australia. You guys are sometimes, off on your own. So, what can you tell me? But it's a pretty strong jiu-jitsu scene out there. What can you tell me about it?
Yeah, Perth has exploded when it comes down to it. There's quite a number of players in the game these days, and the level of skill it's definitely up there. There's no doubt
Mm,
about it. I think sometimes it is because we're removed.
Yeah,
I really do believe that, and that's one of the that's yeah, that's one of the good parts about being removed is that the people that do work hard usually it pays off. Uh, uh, I'm really surprised at a lot of times how well people from Perth do, and in martial arts. When I first arrived, it wasn't really that big. There's no doubt about that, as in martial arts in general. But these days, there's all sorts of really good competitions over there. Some of the shows are fantastic.
yeah, yeah,
battlegrounds.
Battlegrounds is just top notch.
yeah.
I have the fortune of refereeing for Battlegrounds and have done since they started. And wow, what a privilege that is. I get the best seat in the house. I get the easiest refereeing gig that you can ever get, which is submission grappling. And George and the crew from Battlegrounds, they get some really good competitors there.
It is.
First combat jiu-jitsu matches in West Australia in the last one. That was just awesome to see, and got to take part judging in that. But yeah, there's some real players that stomp their authority on the mats. I don't necessarily know how, but like I said, maybe it is because of that separation. Yeah, that people get to focus. It's a
Yeah.
really good place to live too. The climate's fantastic here.
Mm.
People say it's cold here. It's not really.
Well, you came from Canada, so I
Yeah.
don't know what exactly the weather is, but it's fairly brutal. Majority of Canada, yeah.
Well, when I think that's why wrestling can be good in a place like that because everything's indoors there, so it's
Mm.
an indoor sport. and the rooms are heated. There's no heating in the dojo here. When it's wintertime here, I say, well, put a jumper on until we get going. And once we get going, then we got to keep going until we're done.
Yeah.
But we have a shower that's for the hose outside, and that still goes on year round. That's normal.
Yeah.
It's not that cold here,
Yeah.
It doesn't snow here. It's not negatives. Yeah. And then the spring, summer, and autumn are just beautiful.
Yeah.
Perth's much hotter than here, by the way, too. Yeah, it's in the 5 hours does mean a lot. It's up there today. It's warm. It's near the 30s, but here today it's just in the low 20s. Really nice. Yeah.
Tell us about your hierarchy of stress in regards to what one's most stressful for you: competing, watching students compete, or refereeing?
Refereeing I don't find difficult at all, and I really enjoy. I don't have any problems with who I'm aligned to. As soon as you're a referee, all that stuff goes out the window. I'm totally impartial. That's easy to do. I like that part.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't referee your own guys' matches anyway. That's just courtesy, I believe.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be a problem for me. I could I could very easily disqualify one of my guys if they did something wrong. No
I would
problem.
I would be okay with you refereeing one of your students against me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Competing can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but I like it. I very much enjoy, obviously, the preparation if I could get through without getting injured these days. But yeah, the value of competing because you've tried over a period of time is that is the meaning of life to me at times. That's it. There's no doubt about it. I wish I didn't get injured as much. Coaching your students, that's definitely more nerve-wracking. Yeah, that'd be at the top. I speak a little bit differently. I say things a little bit differently to people. I'm pretty vocal. You can hear me. If I'm there, you'll hear me.
Yeah.
I don't have to wear this shirt. You'll hear me.
No.
Yeah.
And that's how I met you, because I heard you at the gathering. Yes.
Yeah. I'm encouraging. I'm not. I certainly don't badmouth or talk silly or.
No.
It's all positive. I try to align it with what we've practiced when I am trying to coach. And then there's times where I just go, nah, you're doing this all on your own. I don't need to help you. I don't need to say anything. But I'm definitely encouraging. I'm definitely loud. And coaching is very valuable, but the most nerve-wracking for sure.
Isn't that interesting? Because I find refereeing the most nerve-wracking for me. Maybe it's because I don't referee all that often, but I just kind of feel like these people's sort of health or potential injury is in my hands, especially refereeing kids. That makes me the most nervous because their joints are so hypermobile. Two, they seem just frenetic all the time. They're worse than like brand new white belts.
And you go like this.
Yes. And then you've got the parents and the coaches and a bunch of other people on the sidelines, much more than with adults. So for me, I probably say the opposite order to what you have, whereas I find that the most stressful for me because I just feel it's all on me. All eyes are on me. And also nobody likes the referees. Like, I feel like you can't win. It's always someone's going to be hating on you, whatever happens,
50% of 50% of them are going to hate you.
Oh, for sure. But I definitely believe, especially higher ranks should definitely referee because it totally helps your game, helps your understanding of jiu-jitsu, your knowledge of jiu-jitsu, and just in being in that competition environment for sure. Would you say?
Yeah. I do agree that there is that element of spotlight as well as, oh geez, I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah,
I understand that. But I was forced to do it when it comes down to it. John Will just said, "No, you're doing it," and I'm like, oh, okay. And you kind of bite the bullet and say, "Yeah, I'm going to do this." And then, of course, that makes you have to cover your bases. So it's not like I haven't watched a few hours worth of how you're
Yeah.
supposed to do it. I've definitely tried my best to make sure I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm still happy to make mistakes too. I guess that's the other thing too. If I make a mistake, I make a mistake.
Yeah.
People have to be able to accept that.
Yeah.
And I allow that for my students, and I actually allow myself to make mistakes. That's just it happens. I don't want to, and I try not to, but
Yeah.
I do understand the stress that you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kids. Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
They're the
You
hardest
have
of
to allow
all.
for that, don't you? You've got to allow for people's mistakes. I mean, they happen.
Yeah.
We're all human. They do happen.
Yeah.
Give us a John Will story or something that you've learned from John, Chris. I'm sure there's countless things you've learned.
I've been to a lot of seminars with John.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will make an effort every single time, regardless of where I lived. When I was living in Perth and living down here, happily go so that I can go and hang out with them. The first seminar I went to was at Troy Flugy's at the Sub Factory with John Will, and I like to work hard. I like to learn. When I get taught something, I like to drill it, and I drill it in essence when I'm on the ball, which I try to be at a seminar. I drill it like a wrestler. I go hard. I try to do more reps than anybody in the room.
Yeah.
And that's something that John says. That's something that's been uttered from his mouth a number of times.
Yeah.
You do those extra 5 every single time you show in. It's going to transition. It's the laws of reciprocity. There's no doubt about that. So I'm repping and doing my best to learn what it is we're practicing, and had a great seminar. And as John's leaving, and I don't know if John remembers this, but it's etched in my brain. He's saying goodbye to people and stuff, and he says, "Keep your eye on this guy," he said to me and pointed at me. And that's been something that's been burning inside of me since forever. And I don't think he necessarily meant that I was going to be a world champion or anything like that. It was just that he knew that I was interested, that I was going to try hard, and I'm going to give my all. And that's, him being a mentor for me has made it easy to try to be a teacher, and I don't know if people have kept their eyes on me. I don't really care. All I know is he said that to me, and it made me feel so proud to put that effort in, and grateful.
It's amazing what words from somebody can do. Like they can be so powerful. It can go either way, but can be so powerful. And as you say, Chris, like I don't know if John will remember. It might have been, one of those, not a throwaway line, and as in he didn't mean it, but he just saw it, said it, and walked out the door. And sometimes people have said to me, and I'm sure you guys have done it and heard it, like, do you remember when you said that? Like, that meant so much. I'm like, I don't remember it. Like, I've got no concept. But I have the same sort of stories that people have said to me, It's that's an awesome one, mate. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, Chris, I asked him for some inside information on you, and he said that you're all smiles and hugs in which you hide your deadly talents. And he called you a lovely menace. So he still speaks.
John said that.
Yes, he did. So there you go. He still thinks pretty highly of you, I'd say.
I'm fortunate. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, John and Melissa, even just the thought of them well me up, fills me with goodness. It's been like that forever. I don't know why some people do that to you, and I'm grateful. And I know John knows that, and I know Melissa knows that as well. And how cool is it? Felix got his black belt. Holy cow!
Yes.
That's the coolest thing ever. Yeah, and
So
I got
good.
to get a picture with him and everything. I was like a fanboy. Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to get him on this show too.
Oh,
So,
yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we are very grateful, Chris, for you giving up your time for this episode. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words for our listeners? Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, listen to your injuries. Yeah, it's
Mate, can you take your own advice or not?
Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, listen to your injuries. I'm getting better at it. I am. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, try not to give up. It transcends your entire existence, what we get up to if you let it. And not giving up is a part of that. Tapping is required, but not giving up is something that you need to carry in. And life is hard, and so is what we do. And it's not knitting. You're gonna get hurt, but that's life too. And try to make it transition to every part of what you do if you can. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No, you're welcome.
I'm sorry that we didn't get to meet and chat that long at the gathering, Kim. And I'm sorry that you missed out this year on the Worlds as well, Brent. But hey, it's part of the deal.
It is part of the deal, mate. The mistake I made, I literally got off the plane when I landed back here on a Tuesday night, and I've just drilled it over and over and over. So it's a shitty lesson to learn, but it's a lesson that you do learn, and you just get better from it, right? Like that's how we improve. And it's not about, I mean, part of it is about winning, but the biggest part is about just continually to get better, right? Like that's what it should be about.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, thank you, Chris, for coming on. I was actually really excited about this podcast and having you on. You've lived up to everything that I knew you would be. Fun, enjoyable, and absolutely just showcase your love that you have for jiu-jitsu, but more so the love that you have for people, mate. It really shines through. So those sorts of things make me emotional too. So we will leave it there. Guys, remember, please like, rate, and share the podcast. We really appreciate all the love and support that you guys give us. Buy a t-shirt.
I
Kim's
need a
got it
t-shirt.
on.
I'm going to buy
Yeah.
one. I need the
$30.
link. I'm a t-shirt guy. I got a box in the garage.
And the
We'll
quality
have
of
the
these
link
t-shirts
on this episode.
yeah, the quality of these t-shirts are really, really good. We're super happy for them. They don't look as bright as Chris's, but they are cool. It'll get people talking. We'll leave it there. Thank you, guys. That's another episode of Roll or Die, and we will see you on the next one. Chris, you're a star, mate. I really appreciate you. Thanks very much for coming on.
Much love to you both. Stay well. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Bye.